If you work in marketing, you'll know what this episode is about. Have you heard of online advertising, content marketing, campaign management, native advertising? The digital marketing manager does all that and much more. Steffi worked for Google, where she refined her skills as digital marketing manager. Steffi, let's hear from you what your job is about.
So a digital marketing manager is, as the name says, responsible for the digital marketing channels. And those are online advertising, social media, email marketing, SEO. And if you don't know all of these keywords, they are different ways to describe how you reach a potential customer online. And the objective of what a digital marketing manager does is to address the person in the right way on the different channels and make sure that these channels work together. And maybe to give an example is as a digital marketing manager, my role is to make sure that the company achieves the objectives that it has. So let's say if that's sales. And so my objective would be to reach the right people that the company wants to sell to via online advertising on websites or on social media, and then to make sure that this person is also reached out to by email afterwards, etc. So just to make sure that the online presence of the company eventually sells.
Good. So it seems that there are quite a few elements to your job as a digital marketing manager. Is there one in particular that you like most?
I am personally very passionate about online advertising. And the reason for that is that with online advertising, you can really reach people in the right moment with the right message and actually track what you're doing, which is different from traditional marketing. Because if you see a billboard in the street, the company that put the billboard there won't know if you actually were interested in what you saw or not. And so the beauty of online advertising is that you can track everything and evaluate everything, but also as a customer, you can actually see advertising that is relevant to you. And that's why I'm particularly passionate about online advertising.
Yes, because I would think many people might think it's an invasive way of doing marketing, right? So what do you say to that? And how do you see it differently, since it is your job, so you must have a different opinion about this?
I believe that it is not invasive if it adds value. And so the beauty of this form of marketing is that since there's a lot of data out there about you online, it is possible to target you with ads that give you information that add a value. And so by doing that, actually advertising can become something valuable. And if you now think of, you don't like ads, because most people don't like ads, just think of how many times were you actually looking for something online and then the solution came to you with, it might have been an ad and you were not aware of it, but actually it added value to your search because you got a solution. And that applies to B2B and to B2C, because for instance, in B2B, that can be a white paper that helps you with valuable information for your business. And so I think there are two responses to this question. One is that online advertising can actually add value. And on the other hand, intrusive as of a way of showing the ad. There are lots of different ways that ads can show online, but I believe that in today, there are lots of formats that make it very natural. So it's not intrusive anymore, but that obviously is each and everyone's personal perception. But I'm sure that you've seen lots of ads, maybe today, that you were not aware of that they were ads.
Do you need to have some specific studies in order to become a digital marketing manager, or what was your path and what would be a usual path to become a digital marketing manager?
So I think you can become a digital marketing manager with any kind of business studies, and what you really need in the end is the experience and the understanding of the different online channels. Because as I mentioned, it touches on on different channels. And each of these channels actually has its own profession. So the channels I mentioned before, in big companies, you have people that work on just one of those channels, and you have specializations. If you want to become a digital marketing manager who manages all of those channels, you need to have at least a good understanding of all of them. And studies obviously can help. My path, for instance, was more practical, I would say, than on the study side. I did study business administration and then international marketing as a master's. However, I would say the relevant knowledge that I got was really on the field. And so I knew very early that I wanted to do this job. And so I knew that I would need to have experience in different disciplines that I just mentioned. And I actually did lots of internships during my studies to get as much experience as I could. And that already helped me because I worked in social media. I even managed Facebook advertising as an intern. And I was a project manager for the creation of a website, which gave me some background knowledge. So as of background knowledge, what really helps is also if you have some technical knowledge about the internet, how tracking works. But you don't necessarily need to have deep knowledge on that, because in digital marketing, you have so many specializations. And one of them is also on the technical side to really know how tracking works, how coding works, etc. So you don't need to be like a developer to become a digital marketing manager. These things are really they're not completely disconnected, because you need to have an understanding for the technical side, but you don't need to be an expert. I would say you need to have some level of expertise, which you can acquire with, as I said, jobs in each area. So for instance, in my case, I had that social media experience and then the project management experience. But what really helped me, of course, was actually to work for Google. I worked for Google within online advertising, and I was consulting clients of how to optimize their advertising. However, before joining Google, I didn't have any knowledge of Google Ads. So they actually hired me based on the potential they saw and not based on the knowledge, which is particularly for Google. I also know that when I was applying for any kind of role around campaign management, of advertising campaign management, it was very hard for me to get the first job in there. And so the advice I would give to someone who wants to get that experience, I would say if you're a student, internships are a great way to get first experience in that field, because managing campaigns in a way is a lot of manual work that an intern can do. Like I'm hiring an intern right now for that. And then I think, as I said, if you want to actually become a digital marketing manager who manages more than just one channel, you need to get that experience step by step. And that can be in different roles. It can be by growing within one company into other roles, into other fields. Like, for instance, I've seen lots of CVs of people that started out as a campaign manager and then they took on more responsibility within their company. That's not something I did. I'm just giving the example here for people who wonder how can they get there. And in my case, since I had different roles in different fields within digital marketing, I step by step got that knowledge, which brought me to where I am today.
Excellent. Definitely, I'm sure that the experiences you had must have been very useful to where you are now. And what would be an ideal mix of marketing tools that includes also the digital mix? And what is the link also with, or the relationship between digital and non-digital?
I think even today, for most companies, it's still a mystery of how they can combine, for instance, print and digital. And one tool that makes it easier today are QR codes, which make it possible, obviously, to connect, for instance, a print flyer with your online website. Then there are actually more and more players that try to connect digital with offline, and there are companies specialized on this, such as AdSquare and others. Just to say that there's a whole world out there of complex solutions, of, for instance, trying to target people based on which stores they go and stuff like that. So really connecting your offline behavior with online behavior to target more precisely, which is a whole different topic. There are lots of ways today to actually try to expose you to advertising that is relevant. There are ways, but it's still a very complex topic. And it's a very exciting topic as well.
You were talking about changing behavior, right? Because that's what, marketing is all about, and advertising. How do you think that digital marketing can help change behavior in a better way than other means?
So I believe that digital marketing has a lot of power in a certain way, because there are lots of things that can influence our mind unconsciously. And so I think marketing in general has kind of that power, and digital even more, because it's even more targeted, even more precise. And so the way where I see where digital marketing can have a sense and a purpose is to actually influence people in a positive way, and to achieve, in a way, change towards a better world by making people aware of things that can create a better world. And that is just my personal vision. It's obviously not like the way digital marketing is naturally used. It, of course, depends on the company, but that's where I see, in a way, the potential. So an example would be, let's say, if there was one platform for sustainable solutions and companies that want to make this world a better place, that want to work against pollution, against exploitation of workers, for local businesses, for healthier food, etc. Let's say everything you imagine around sustainability, and imagine there was one platform for this, and marketing could help achieve more reach of that platform, and more people would be aware that there are actually solutions out there already. And there are lots of small businesses that work on solutions that can make this world a better place. But the problem is, most of these businesses don't know how to advertise themselves properly. And so I see a potential in, if more businesses that actually do something good for this world knew how to use digital marketing properly, and if there was, for instance, such kind of platform as I envision, it could become a force of change. And I know that's a very big thinking way of talking, but I really do believe in that something like this could happen one day. And I personally would love to work on it. If any of you hears this and thinks that's a great idea, please feel free to reach out to me.
When I think of online media, I think of fast pace. I think of being always up to date. Do you need to stay up to speed because the world of the internet and the social media is so fast and it changes? Like, for instance, I have got stuck with Facebook, and I don't even have, I didn't have an Instagram page until recently. And my niece tells me, "Aunt, you are too old. Now everybody's on Instagram." And so I was like, wow. So I feel that if I don't stay for 3 months, like online, I'm losing something. I'm missing on something. How do you handle this?
Yes, it's definitely a very fast-paced industry. And so, of course, you need to do your proper research. You need to stay up to date on what's happening. And you have lots of blogs out there. I mean, obviously, if you search for online topics, online resources are the best. So you can find a lot online. And you naturally also hear about updates when you work with Google or Facebook, etc., because they inform you. But of course, you also need to do your proper research to make sure that you don't miss anything.
What are the platforms today that you're working on? Let's say, without doing any advertising here on anything, because we're not this episode and this podcast is not sponsored. What is trendy today to work on platforms? Like I'm talking Facebook, I'm talking Instagram, I'm talking Vimeo for videos. What are your tools that you work on?
I would say it really depends on what is your objective and what do you want to achieve with advertisement. So personally, I'm a big fan of Facebook advertising because it's very native. Not because I'm a huge Facebook user. I mean, I do use Facebook, but mainly because the form of advertising, so the way the ads look and the way the ads blend in with the normal content, is so what we call in advertising native, that as I said before, you might not even perceive it as an ad because it looks like a normal post. And so that's where, in a way, advertising is going. If you look at advertising formats, more and more companies such as Google try to make the ads even more native. We call it native. Native means it really blends into the content as if it was an ad. And that's in the end the objective for a company advertising, that you won't realize it's an ad. So I mentioned the objectives. It depends on what you want to achieve, because if you don't want to annoy people with your advertising, which I'm a fan of, because I personally find in some ways advertising annoying as well, even though I love it for certain reasons. But just to say that I do see this realistic. And what I'm trying to say here is, for instance, there are websites that are full of advertising, and these ads that you see, they might be from Google, but they might also be from other ad networks. In advertising, there is a whole big world that is called programmatic advertising, which I was working in as well within Google, which makes it now possible to have ad formats that are in a way very intrusive and very creative, and etc. But in the end, what I think personally the most effective and the less intrusive is native ads. And as I mentioned Facebook, I mentioned websites. The reason I'm saying websites and not Google Ads is because on websites you can have ads from Google, it can be from Criteo, there are different layers to it, the ad networks, the ad exchanges, demand-side platforms. I'm throwing out keywords here just to say that it's a whole complex industry, and the ad you actually see on a website can come from different sources. And that's why it makes it difficult to respond to the question, like what platforms do you use? Because I personally right now work a lot of Google Ads, but it's not the only way you can do advertising on websites. And I'm personally a big fan of Facebook as of the native formats, but that's just from my experience so far. And I would say that the same could apply for ads on Twitter or Pinterest or I don't know, like whatever social network. So I would say there's a tendency that ads tend to be more native on social networks, and that's why those social networks, they work very well, and they're a big threat, let's say, not threat, but they're a big competition for other advertising companies such as Google. I think it really depends on what you want to achieve, because if you have an ad on a website that's very intrusive, that might annoy people. So that are typically ads that are there for awareness, and people will perceive them. People will, as I said before, it will influence like unconscious, most probably, as like also a lot of offline advertising does. But if you really want to achieve action, let's say sales or leads from ads, I would say formats that are less intrusive, very well targeted, are more effective.
What a world to discover. Now, there is a major advantage in digital than in print. It is that you can track actually the results in a much more tangible way. What are the tools that you use in order to track the actual outcome of advertisement?
So there are also lots of players out there when it comes to online tracking. But personally, I would say Google Analytics is, for me, the best. Maybe I'm biased because I worked for Google, but yeah, I would say Google Analytics is a great source of truth. And then you have different tracking tools that you can connect to Google Analytics if you want to see the performance of not only what's happening online, but also in connection to your CRM system, or to even offline, let's say, store visits or any offline traffic. There are tools such as Tableau that makes it possible to connect this data. You can actually even import this kind of data into Google Analytics. I personally use Analytics, but there are lots of other tools out there.
What exactly do you track? Like, do you track the clicks or the fact that maybe a page was opened? And what kind of behavior do you track after you've made a campaign?
Here again, it depends on the objective you have, because if you just want to get your brand out there, just get visibility, you could track impressions or views or clicks. or as you said, a click rate. But if you actually want to achieve results, and that is my personal, let's say, speciality over I see also the most sense in advertising, is to actually achieve sales or leads, an action that is done online, then you would track conversions. And a conversion is what you define it to be. So a conversion can be a sale, it can be a lead. And if I say lead, it means you fill out a form online, so then you become a lead for that company. It could be also that you watch a video, which would be not like, you could define it as a conversion, but which would be more, let's say, a step before the conversion. But you could, for instance, track how many times people have watched the video and then also clicked on it to understand, just to use the example of the video, how effective that video is to what you want to achieve. So there are a lot of things you can track to understand the effectiveness of your ad. And then, of course, to understand what does it bring. And the beauty of it is that you could track if someone saw your ad, then 2 days later saw it again, clicked on it, then put a product in the cart, and then came back to it a week later and actually purchased. All of that can be followed. And that's the beauty of digital.
So some may feel threatened, some may feel excited, and it's definitely an exciting world to be living in. I don't think that 20 years ago we could have even imagined to be tracking results and leads and conversion rates and so forth.
I think what I can add is an exciting part of this whole online advertising world is, especially, we call it audiences. And so I mentioned a couple of times that you can be addressed very precisely. And another keyword I want to give here is programmatic advertising, which I mentioned before. And in programmatic advertising, there are lots of companies out there that have different solutions for how you can actually define your audience more precisely. And that's a field which is all the time evolving, and where I would say digital marketing is not perfect yet either. There are still a lot of, I think, possibilities of development of how you can actually target someone more and more precisely. And when I say target I mean address. And this might sound threatening to you as a consumer. Just be aware that you also have ways to obviously block ads, etc. But also try seeing it again as a way of actually receiving an information that could be valuable for you, and also try to keep in mind that the internet is financed by these ads. So lots of websites wouldn't exist if there was no advertising. And so think of it as, if you need to see the advertising, at least it should be something that adds value to you, unless you use an ad blocker, obviously. And so I just wanted to say that for you as a user, maybe try to see it like that. And if you're interested in working in this field, watch out for all of those little companies that have different solutions in that field, because it's a huge field. And if you don't want to necessarily work straight away as a digital marketing manager, or you can't because you don't have the experience, you could start working for one of those companies who actually have the very precise solutions, and then get step by step some experience in that field. Just like I did with Google, which is a little bit less precise. I mean, it's precise, but what I mean is they do a lot of things. So it's not just one niche solution, but you could as well work for any other company in that field and just start having that experience and then work your way up.
So now you inspired me to go and look at some ads on the internet and not be annoyed, but actually look at them or watch them and read them and see the good in it, because there is a lot of good in it. And so I do agree with you. I thank you very much. And till next time. Have you listened to my previous Job Tales interviews? Stay tuned on my Instagram page and find out. Find me on Spotify, Google Podcast, and Apple Podcast by entering Job Tales Laura.